Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Let's talk about Palantir Technologies, especially after they come out with a very important announcement that I think highlights its future perspective. And we're going to be combining that with the 3 reasons that PLTR could be one of the biggest AI stocks within the next decade. We also have some macroeconomic data that has been revised that has shown actually bullish signs for the economy, which is limiting those recession fears, and we're seeing momentum that is continuing to come into the market, and with the hope that we're going to continue to see the probability for those first interest rate cuts coming September staying high. If you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, what you see here, Palantir Technologies closes here at $31, doing very well, especially after this important reversal that was triggered here at the 30. Now, what we saw was a little bit of a pullback in the market, and a reversal at the support zone being triggered at the 30 is incredibly important for building a foundation into these new incremental price zones, 30 and above, and relying on that when we do see macro impacts leading to more of a bearish perspective. So great to see there. We'll continue to see how PLTR consolidates in the low 30s. Trading volume is still looking pretty healthy. The news that I want to talk about today here is that Palantir on Thursday announced that it was named a leader in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now, the research and advisory firm Forrester recognized PLTR as its leader in AI and machine learning and invited the company to participate in the Forrester Wave Q3 2024 report. Now, Palantir noted that it was given the highest ranking in the current offering category, and the Forrester report characterizes that Palantir's AIP as basically one of its strongest offerings, and I couldn't agree anymore that AIP has done very well in expanding PLTR's not just revenue and success, but also diversifying their clientele, and suggests that the company is really quietly becoming one of the largest players in the AI market. We're seeing Palantir that's starting to pop up in the headlines, creeping up, getting more investors' attention, and really being a leading competitor within this industry. Now, Palantir is also demanding and providing good use cases in the public and the private sector. Utilization and bringing in actual utility factor to the AI industry, I think, is what Palantir has really gotten down to a T. So I would agree here that being one of the best in AI and machine learning, Palantir should be given that ranking. With what they've been doing in the last just year and a half with the rollout of AIP, things have been incredibly successful. Now, we've seen volatility with NVIDIA, especially after earnings. We're going to be touching that in just a few minutes. But first, let's break down here. Interesting article talking about the 3 reasons why Palantir could be the AI stock of the next decade. And the first thing that they mention is that data is its only business. And as technology and AI continues to grow, it needs to learn off of data. And data is becoming very, very valuable. We've seen this within the last decade, and I think it's only going to continue to do so. So the fact that Palantir is a software business at its heart and creating these software products to allow customers to make informed decisions by processing tons and tons and tons of data, that is the gasoline for Palantir's products. It's finding all the hidden things that we couldn't find, sifting through mountains and exponential amounts of data. The more data that Palantir has to analyze, the better results that it can produce. And also the different types of data that it can have, the different types of problems or whatever these companies are looking for, Palantir could show them the answer. They can be an answer to a lot of the questions that are out there. So data is continuing to drive and be a gasoline for PLTR. Number 1, 2 is AIP's growth is accelerating, and we've seen the company's commercial revenue here jumping Q2 2024, rising nearly 25%. And overall, we've seen successful numbers in the most recent quarter for PLTR. There's no question, I agree here, that Palantir's growth is accelerating due to AIP. And of course, we have here, even this article mentions it, the valuation is skeptical. We've talked about this in the previous few videos. We've really been highlighting on where Palantir could be going in the short term, especially as it trades at nearly 30 times its sales and 78 times its cash flow, despite the obvious growth contributions. But right now, it looks like investors are kind of throwing valuation out the window, not just for PLTR, but for a lot of these AI stocks in general. And the third reason here is that it's not just commercial growth. We've been talking about AIP. That's the highlight for Palantir, but that's not the only thing that's happening behind the scenes that's leading to Palantir's success. We've seen the government that has really been looking at the scope of opportunity and looking in the past quarter here, talking about the U.S. governmental business, including its defense and artificial and intelligence agencies, surpassing $1 billion in terms of revenue going there. We've seen highlighting the 5-year, $480 million contract with the Department of Defense. And Palantir started building its credibility and its trustworthiness from these governmental contracts. I think this is only going to continue, and both of these things growing at the same time is a win-win situation for Palantir. And where we look for the next earnings, not till November, we still got some time here, but already 11 bullish revisions in terms of earnings per share, 0 in the bearish direction at 9 cents, revenue estimates at $703 million. Now let's talk about quickly what's happening in the market here. We got the Dow Jones that's continuing to rise, but the NASDAQ and S&P 500 that slip a little bit due to the heavy weight of NVIDIA. We're going to be talking about why the artificial intelligence here, the darling they call it, NVIDIA, which fell 6.4% in its second fiscal quarter after the chip maker exceeded expectations on the top and the bottom lines and also issued a rosy quarter sales outlook on Wednesday afternoon. One of the big things here, even though NVIDIA has been doing a really, really good job, the size of the beat this time was much smaller than that we've been seeing. And investors were expecting more. And basically, they might have just set the bar too high. We'll talk about this more in detail in just a second, about why market sentiment, and just because you have positive earnings, does not always mean that the stock is going to respond in what the general consensus believes it will. Talking about macroeconomic data, we have the weekly jobless claims here, fell from the week prior. This is good, easing those recession concerns. And you have the GDP was revised higher to 3% growth from an initial 2.8% rate. Now, despite the bullish analyst calls for the AI chip maker, and why I think a lot of people are confused here, one of the big things is that we have more than a dozen Wall Street firms that actually raised their price targets on NVIDIA after the company beat the report. We've seen amazing earnings that have been reported, not just this last quarter, but the previous few quarters. And what here, fast money momentum traders, they are selling the stock after a big run up and lack of enough upside to break the stock out of this $130 resistance zone. And if we go to NVIDIA right here, you can see this resistance that is right here at the 130s. There was just not enough upside to break through that. We're seeing a lot of the big movers that are starting to bring down the stock, and that is being correlated with investors that were wanting more. They're wanting more, and this is where greed is starting to bite some of these investors in the butt. So the price to perfection in this euphoric mindset was really reflected in the earnings watch parties. I agree with that. And the forward guidance, although impressive, fell short of what the expectations were, particularly on the gross margins. So they're expecting NVIDIA to continue, not just beat earnings, but absolutely smash it. And at some point, this is what my fear was with PLTR. At some point, they're not going to be able to keep up with the expectations because greed will eventually overtake the reality sentiment. What is actually going to be happening? Greed will sometimes take advantage of that. One other thing that we've been checking out, the IWM. This is the Russell 2000 ETF, looking pretty good here. We've seen resistance at the 222 as interest rates do come down, investors are anticipating that this will start to raise a market value just due to the fact that these companies can now have cheaper borrowing access to funds to help expand their companies. What do you think about Palantir and all this? Do you think it's going to hold above the 30s? Do you think the market's going to continue to look healthy? We have the PCE data that will be released tomorrow. We'll be making a video on that. And what's your opinion on NVIDIA earnings reports? Let me know down in the discussion. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out, take care, and have, of course, a wonderful night. Thank you so much for watching Data Dispatch.